Welcome to Grieving Out Loud. I'm your host, Angela Kennecke. When parents find out their child's facing a serious challenge, most will do whatever it takes to try to help. That was certainly true for Janel Rodriguez after she learned her teenage son was battling a marijuana addiction.
For 3 days a week, for 6 months, Brandon and I would drive Noah into Austin, Texas. And if you know anything about where we're at, we would avoid driving into Austin at all costs. But we did it because we were set on helping our son.
But despite all of her efforts, her son's life took a heartbreaking turn she never imagined when he was just a sophomore in high school.
I recognized the phone number calling me as being Noah's friend's number. I did expect to hear Noah on the other end of the line, asking for food or Slurpees or whatever, right? Because he would do that frequently. But the first thing I heard was, that scream in the background. That scream you'd hear in a horror film.
In this episode of Grieving Out Loud, hear Janel's heartfelt message to other parents, what she wishes she would have known sooner, and how she's turning her pain into purpose to help prevent future tragedies. Hi, Janel. It is just a pleasure to see you again. Welcome to Grieving Out Loud.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me today.
Oh, you're so welcome. I always say this. I say it over and over again. I'm so sorry that we have met under these tragic circumstances of losing our children, but I'm really grateful to know you, and I'm grateful for the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
To give people a little bit of a background, Janel, you and I just met in person for the first time a few months ago when we were in Dallas together as part of a roundtable of parents who have all lost kids in this way. And we were talking about a number of issues for a TV special that's out on all Nexstar stations across the country.
Yes.
And this is actually the second special that they've put out. We were both featured in the first one. The stories of our children were featured. And I just want to jump right into that and your family's story and the story of Noah. And he's so young. I'm so heartbroken for you and for your family and for Noah's siblings. But can you tell me a little bit about Noah and what kind of kid he was and what he was into?
Yeah, Noah was your typical teenager. Video games, basketball, football, shoes. He's just a fun kid, great, smart, popular.
Noah grew up surrounded by family in Buda, Texas. He was an honor roll student, a football player since he was 4, and according to his mom, an easygoing, happy kid.
Brandon and I never really had any issues with Noah. Very obedient, mild-mannered. We would have things here and there, but for the most part, no.
So I think what's interesting about that is that it doesn't really matter the temperament of the child, right? All kids can start kind of experimenting with substances. And that age, I think 14 to 16 is real common for kids to do this. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're acting out or rebellious, but you knew that Noah was doing a little bit of experimenting, right?
Yes, we did know. I guess it started around COVID. He was in 8th grade when that happened. Nobody was able to hang out with your friends or family, whatever. So he started hanging around at our neighborhood park where he started meeting a new group. And it worried us a little, we didn't want to automatically be judgmental towards these kids, but they were just a different group, a different look, a different style than what we were used to. Noah would come home smelling like pot. We would question him, and he would always have something to say about why he smelled that way, whether it was there was a group at the park smoking and it probably just lingered on to him while he was playing basketball. And I know that sounds silly, but because we didn't have any issues with him, we just believed it.
Sure. You wanted to believe it. Of course, you don't want to believe that your kid is going down that route. And I think what's so interesting is that for so many of our kids, and we just recently had an episode out about how dangerous just cannabis and THC is for the adolescent brain. But so many kids start with that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And it's so common and so socially acceptable, really, although it shouldn't be for children. This is when I have some of the pro-cannabis adults coming after us, and I'm like, hey, you do what you want to do in the states where it's legal and you're an adult, but it is not for the developing brain. And I just get on my high horse about that because it's the truth. It's medically true.
Yeah, for sure.
Although Noah was generally well-behaved and respectful toward his parents, Janel says he began getting into some trouble, and she did everything she thought was right to help him.
Noah spent some time on probation for a non-drug related charge. Him and some friends took my truck out for a joyride one summer, and I pressed charges, because I'm just that kind of parent. So he did have to do probation, but as far as being disrespectful, defiant, he was not. He was your typical teenager. We all snuck out of the house at one time or another.
Janel, I did that tough love stuff too with Emily when some of that stuff started, with sneaking out. And I got law enforcement involved. I thought maybe I could scare her, right?
Yeah.
And there were hard things to do. Wasn't that hard? It was hard to do.
It was, yeah.
But you just think, you got to do this hard thing to protect your kid. If I do this hard thing, they won't do this again.
Yeah, for sure. It was extremely hard when the officer that pulled him over, and I said, I want to press charges on all the boys. He said, you want to press charges on your son? And, I was like, yeah, as hard as it is, yes, this is a lesson that needs to be learned. I'm not going to put up with it. I'm not going to bail you out. Consequences. We've always taught Noah that to every decision, every choice he made, there was consequences.
Right. Because parenting with love and logic, that was my Bible when my kids were little. I mean, I was like, okay, hopefully there's natural consequences, and I just thought that they would learn from those things. And Emily had 3 other siblings at home. And so you can't just allow the oldest one to just do whatever. And then what kind of example are they setting for the other kids?
Right. Exactly.
Janel eventually found out that her son was using marijuana. She did everything she could to stop it, but it wasn't easy.
It was a constant fight, and he would say, well, so-and-so's parent lets them do this and that. And I'm like, well, I'm not that parent. I'm not going to let my 14, 15-year-old smoke pot.
Right. Because it's bad for their brains. Yeah. And it only is going to lead to problems for them, at this young age. And with Emily, one of her friends told me that she was smoking weed with her boyfriend and his mother. His mother was condoning it. And this was at about age 16.
Oh, wow.
And I was just blown away. I mean, this came from her friend, who felt that she had to tell me.
Yeah.
Right? Janel knew how harmful marijuana is to the developing brain. So when Noah got put on probation for taking her truck on a joyride, she brought up something else. She asked the judge and probation officer if Noah could also get into outpatient rehab. They agreed it sounded like a good idea.
So for 3 days a week, for 6 months, Brandon and I would drive Noah into Austin, Texas. And if you know anything about where we're at, we would avoid driving into Austin at all costs. But we did it because we were set on helping our son, right? So 3 days a week for 6 months, we're taking him to outpatient treatment. As part of that, they would randomly drug test every week. So he didn't know which day he was going to get tested, and he would come up negative for 6 months at random, right? So he finished his probation in April of 22. Brandon and I encouraged him to stay in rehab because there's no harm. It can only benefit him. But again, Noah was like, no, Mom, I'm doing great. I haven't smoked in 6 months. I can do this. I don't need it. And we believed him.
This is the thing I think is so troubling for parents. It's troubling for me. I did everything under the sun. You did everything under the sun to try to help your kid, to try to set your kid on the right course.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter because of fentanyl being out there. I mean, this is the thing. You can try to take all these steps, but if they make one wrong move or if they struggle with a substance as my daughter did and fall back into it or whatever, then they can die. Everything that you're doing, it just feels like this is what frustrates me as a parent looking back is all those efforts all those sleepless nights, all the steps I took, everything involved, as you did with Noah.
Yeah.
It feels like it was wasted.
Yeah. But I would do it all over again,
Well, I would do everything over again to have 21 years with my
Yes.
daughter. And I know you feel that way about Noah.
For sure. Yeah.
As one of the nation's strongest financial organizations, First Premier Bank and Premier Bank Card have the strength to do good. We support nearly 700 organizations and nonprofits. Our employees give more than 30,000 volunteer hours annually. And we are continually seeking ways to make South Dakota an even better place to live. It's the Premier way. First Premier Bank and Premier Bank Card.
Janel felt hopeful, like maybe Noah had finally turned a corner. But just a few weeks after he finished rehab and completed probation, she got a phone call that shattered everything.
It was Mother's Day of 22. Brandon and I were with our 2 little girls at a splash pad, and we get a phone call. Well, I had reached out for my phone, and I noticed I had 10 missed calls. And as I'm looking through the numbers, the call comes in again. So I answered it, and it was our local police department, Kyle Police Department. And they said, "Is this Janel Rodriguez, Noah's mom?" And I'm like, "Yes." And they're like, "Your son is non-responsive at, this address. We need you here now." Of course, I'm like freaking out, right? I'm like, "What happened? What happened?" He's like, "Ma'am, we don't know. We don't know how long he's been without oxygen. Just get here immediately." So our little girls are stoked. Brandon loads them up. They're drenched in their swimsuits. Long story short, they tell us to go to the hospital to meet them there. We ended up at Dell Children's in Austin, where Noah was on life support in ICU for 4 days.
Oh my gosh.
And so it turns out that while he was at his friend's house, there was a group of boys there, and they all decided to try cocaine. And so in Noah's system, he had cocaine, pot, and benzos. All the other kids were fine. They were not affected at all. They all were released from the hospital that night. But like I said, Noah was on life support in ICU for 4 days. We do remember hearing the doctor say when he was reading us a tox screen, "I'm surprised it's not fentanyl." And at that time, he didn't say it like to alarm us. He didn't tell us what it was. Nothing. So we were just like, okay, well, it's cocaine, pot, and benzos. When Noah wakes up on the 4th day, the first thing he tells me is, "Mom, I tried coke last night." And I said, "No, baby, you tried coke 4 days ago." He realizes where he's at. He starts crying and starts getting upset. And I just tell him to calm down, right? So we come home a week and a half later. I was kind of upset that they released him because his lungs, he had aspirated so much vomit. His lungs were in horrible shape. Like before we left, the doctor said, "Don't even let him go on walks. We don't want him to get his heart rate up."
Noah understood the gravity of all this, right? He understood that he almost died.
Yes. So he sat us down when we got home. He sat Brandon and I down. And he said, "I'm sorry, I'll never do this again. That was my first time trying anything other than weed." He said, "I don't want to die." And I said, "Baby, you died. You were dead." I said, "God has given you a second chance at life. Use it." And he said, "I am, Mom. I'm going to get back on the team. I'm going to get my grades back up." He had all these plans, right? We thought it scared him enough because the summer of 22, we had our son back. He was home. He was engaged with the family, his siblings. It was a great summer.
So you thought, as I'm sure any parent would have thought, this is the end of it. This horrible thing that happened, this life-threatening thing that, he obviously had a few moments where he was dead and he could have remained that way.
Right.
And he could die again, that had really made him realize, and now everything was going to be okay.
Yes.
Right? Did you breathe a sigh of relief in a way?
We did. I did, actually. I do remember him calling me into his room in July And he was really, really sad. And I said, "What's going on, baby?" And he's like, "Mom, this kid I met in summer school, he just died from a drug overdose." I was like, "No, I said, baby, you've got to stay clean. You see, like, you just don't know. Like, you were lucky, you know?" Turns out that was our first fentanyl death here in the summer of 22 in Hayes County. And then just weeks later, it happened to us.
It's so hard to understand after going through that, after hearing that his friend had died, why he would use any substance again.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of the kids around here were, pointing fingers. So-and-so was getting him introduced to this, this and that. But, at the end of the day, I can't blame anybody but Noah.
He made a decision. And clearly his brain had already been wired for use.
Yes.
Because of the early use of marijuana.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, those cravings, that desire for that high takes over the brain. We know that, but it's just so hard to really wrap your brain around it. What happened next is really tough to wrap your brain around. Despite knowing the danger of fentanyl and seemingly wanting to go down the right path, Noah decided to try to buy a pill, one pill, that would change everything for him and his family.
Noah purchased some Percocet from one of his friends. It obviously was not Percocet. It was fentanyl.
My guess is he probably thought he was buying a legitimate prescription pill and probably thought that would be safer than anything else to do, maybe.
I think so, too. I get that question asked a lot when I speak to students. They ask, had he tried it before? And I'm very open and honest with them. The detective on our case didn't find any proof that this was his first time or his 100th time, but I'm not naive. I know what we were dealing with. I know what could happen. And I think that Noah tried a true Percocet in its true prescription form from I don't know who. And I think that when it was brought to him that Saturday morning, like, hey, I have some perks, that's what he was thinking about. The feeling he had when he first tried it, and it wasn't.
In August of 2022, Noah was a couple of days into his sophomore year of high school. As he left school that Friday, he told his friends, "See you Monday." But Monday never came for Noah.
We had actually spent all Saturday together because we were at a family barbecue. Thinking about it now, I'm like, he had this pill with him the whole time at the barbecue. The whole time. At any point, he could have chosen to take it when he went to the restroom. Any point, right? But he had it in his pocket or he had it in his backpack the whole time. We knew that we were going to drop him off at a friend's house later that evening. Midnight comes and, I recognize the phone number calling me as being Noah's friend's number. I did expect to hear Noah on the other end of the line, asking for food or Slurpees or whatever, right? Because he would do that frequently. But the first thing I heard was, that scream in the background, that scream you'd hear in a horror film, and the parent on the other end of the line saying, like, in a panic, "I think Noah overdosed." And so right away, obviously, I start panicking. I start going crazy. I start yelling. I start screaming.
Yeah. And then you had to go over there and the worst had happened. And that parent had performed CPR on Noah, right?
Yeah. So while I was on the phone with her, she had been doing CPR for 20 minutes. She was tired. And I started begging her, like, don't stop, don't stop. She said she wouldn't stop until EMS arrived. By the time we got there, I was able to text all of my family. And they were able to make it to the scene in just a matter of minutes because they all knew where this friend lived. When I got to the scene, I'm ready to run inside to go be with Noah. But my mom approaches me. She stops about 3 to 5 feet in front of me. She just stands there staring at me. She puts her head down and shakes her head. I knew that he was gone.
Right. And I know that day, my story is a little different, not much, but a little. And the trauma of that day playing over and over again in your mind, for me, I'm a little further ahead on this grief journey than you are. But I know for the first literally 4 to 5 years, it was almost every day that day popped into my head.
Yeah. And it does. It does. But, we now speak to thousands of students each week. And in my part of the presentation, I relive that
Me
night
too.
over and over. Like I give from the moment we dropped him off, the whole thing. So,
Right. I do the same thing, Janelle. So I have a question for you because after I give these talks to students and I relive that day, and the only reason why I do it, and I relive it, with all the drama that there was in that day, because I have to get the point across to students of how horrible this is for a parent to have their kid die like this and to be in this moment, because I think that sticks with them. But I'm very aware that it re-traumatizes me. I'm mentally exhausted after every time I talk to students. And how do you kind of cope? I say I can do it because I was a journalist for years, and I say every journalist has PTSD. We've seen horrible things, accidents, drownings, murders, and you have to go talk about it, right? And I say I can do it because of those decades of training. How can you do it?
At the beginning, it really wasn't easy, but I still have three young kids that I have to be present for. So is it healthy? Probably not, but I chose from day one not to let them see me. I mean, they see me cry here and there, but I chose not to live in despair because I don't want them thinking that we lost our brother and this is how mommy's acting. This is how we have to act. I want them to deal with their grief their own way and not because I'm sad all the time or, you know what I mean?
I do. I think we do have a choice in how we respond to this happening in our lives. And I think for many people, it feels like they don't have a choice and they fall into that pit of despair.
Right.
I always say there's two kinds of people in the world, bouncers and splatterers. And we all get pushed down into that pit of despair. And some of us just splatter at the bottom of it. And for whatever reason, they're not able to make that choice to bounce back up and to not live in that pit of despair, which I made a conscious choice because of my other kids, because my husband as well. And I feel like we're very much the same way.
Yeah, Brandon and he was pretty, on board too. I was like, I refuse to do this to them. They're already, at the time we had a 4-year-old, 1.5-year-old, and a 2-week-old. So obviously the 1.5-year-old and the 2-week-old don't really,
but there's no doubt that your trauma is passed on to your babies. They're learning so much about that now. Even your stress while your babies are in the womb are really passed. So your 2-week-old, I mean, oh my God, to go through this kind of trauma when you have a baby like that, I feel bad for you and for the child.
Not just that, like I was just diagnosed with having postpartum anxiety. So when we got that phone call that night, Brandon thought I was just having an anxiety attack because I was just yelling, because I had never dealt with anxiety in my life. And every day I felt like I was going to die. I was constantly crying. So he thought I was having an anxiety attack.
So this compounded with that is tough. That's really tough. But you are a survivor. I can tell that.
Yes.
What about the parent who performed CPR, whose house it happened at? How are they doing it? I mean, that would be very difficult as well. I mean, I know this is your child, but still to be in that situation.
I think she's doing well. I wasn't ready to meet with them right away. I wanted to be able to just process the funeral and all the things, right? But when we finally did meet, she assured me, she said, Janel, I work at a children's home overnight. I know how to do CPR. I was doing it. I gave my all. I gave my best, and I believed her.
As Janel, her family, and friends grappled with their overwhelming grief, law enforcement began working to uncover who was behind the pill that took Noah's life.
So right away, Noah's friend, he was picked up about a week after Noah's funeral because other kids in our neighborhood, 3 young men were poisoned a week later.
Did they all die?
They didn't die. They were able to be revived. But one of the young men, his mom's a nurse. So she heard him struggling and the gurgling sound. She heard him in the room. She was able to run to him. And at that time, parents knew that their kids were experimenting, I guess. So she ran to him really quick. She was able to revive him and, all the things. But he spoke up. I like to say he was very brave in speaking up and saying, this is where I got it, and they were able to trace him to Noah's and also the person he got from. So the dealer that he was selling for. So they're both in federal prison.
Oh, they both faced federal charges and were convicted. Or did they plead guilty?
Yes.
You didn't have to go through a trial.
I did not.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And people involved in Emily's case were held accountable too. And I talked to so many parents where that doesn't happen.
No.
So at least there's some justice there. And hopefully I feel like you stop one dealer, then another one pops up. And we talk about this all the time. Are you ready to protect the next generation from the dangers of substance use? Emily's Hope has created a comprehensive K-12 substance use prevention curriculum designed to educate, empower, and equip students with the tools they need to make healthy choices. Our age-appropriate lessons start in kindergarten and build through high school, using science, real stories, and interactive learning to help kids understand their bodies, brains, and risk of drug use. We're already reaching thousands of students across multiple states, and we're just getting started. Visit emilyshopeedu.org to learn more and share our curriculum with your school administrators and counselors. At Emily's Hope, we believe prevention begins with education. Let's work together to keep our kids safe. Janel is doing her part to try to prevent future fentanyl deaths. She launched an organization named Forever 15 Project in memory of Noah, and now travels throughout her community speaking to students and families about the deadly risks of fentanyl and signs that someone may be at risk.
Brandon and I didn't want to start an organization. We just wanted to warn the parents and students in our community, but it just organically grew, and I can't pinpoint how many lives have been touched and saved by Noah's story, but we have helped quite a few students into rehab and mental health facilities. The ones I work with directly, I can say this is X amount, but the ones that we never know about, or the ones that just send an email saying, I stopped vaping because of this, I do know it's making a difference. Yes.
Yeah. That's how I feel about sharing Emily's story as well. Like, I know it's had an impact. I can't say how many kids, and you don't know how many won't make a choice, especially I start talking to kids. Well, we have education curriculum that goes down to kindergarten, but I start my presentation that I do, I start at 6th or 7th grade, and you don't know how many kids then make a different choice because they heard our children's stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we've also been to schools where right after we're done presenting for the day, a kid goes to the restroom and overdoses. It's just
frustrating. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
So when we were together in Texas and we were at this round table, I call it, a group of parents all talking, and we were going over all these issues and talking about solutions. And, we've both been featured in a few different programs that are national, and I've been doing this for a lot of years. Do you think that these things are making a difference?
I do think speaking out, being in front of the camera, getting it out there, I do think that's absolutely making a difference. But, I've said it before. My job, my heart is actively working with families and students. Yes, I will do a roundtable. Yes, I will go speak at the Capitol. Yes, I will go to Washington, D.C. But my heart is boots on ground. Like, I get a call at 3 or 4 in the morning, I'm going to that family. And that's where you're going to see the most change. If you're just out there because, you want to be on film, this and that, what are you really doing to help the problem, help the families, help the addict,
Right. You're doing the real work is what you're saying. I mean, I think all those things, because I have all these years of being in front of the camera, it's fine for me to do that. I have no problem doing that. It's easy. I'm used to it. I live in front of the camera, right? For 3 decades. So I can speak. And I always feel like I'm speaking for all parents when I do it too, because not everyone gets that chance. But I would much rather never, ever have to do that, ever. But yeah, you have to, what you're telling me is you have to be doing the real work too, not just the awareness piece, and maybe real is the wrong word. You have to be doing the other piece too. You can do the awareness, but you also have to be doing the prevention piece and actually being there for people. We have a support group for parents who've lost a loved one in this way. I mean, that is so important, and all of the different things, and we all working in our little corners of the world and working together. I think that's the other thing that's so important. And that is what I liked about this latest Next Star special, is that it really brought parents together, and it showed all these stories of all these parents, and we can't do it on our own.
Right. And, we're not going to save everyone. As a matter of fact, I had a young man back in October who was active in our project, right? Where we're actively helping him, and we would take him on trips to go to awareness rallies, or just, he was an active part of the project, and he passed away from fentanyl. And I took it, how could I not take it personal? Right?
Of course you did.
I took it so personal, so hard. What did I miss? What am I not doing? But people don't understand, it's not just something you turn off and on. Addiction is hard, Right. And even though he was doing all the steps, he just fell that night.
Right. It's just one choice, one time, one short relapse. It doesn't matter. And you're right. I had those, not the same exact thing, but those kinds of things happen where someone relapses or somebody dies, and then you're like, oh, all this work.
Yeah.
And people are still dying.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be. So I think also when people try to simplify this problem, it's such a multifaceted problem. We've got the problem of the fentanyl flowing into this country. We've got the problem with demand and with substance use disorder and mental health. And so it's so complicated because people are complicated, right?
Yes.
And it's just a tough thing. Yeah. Well, thank you for all the work you're doing in Noah's name. And I'm sure we will run into each other again, because as people continue to die, even though the numbers nationwide are going down, which is great, we want to see that number at 0.
Yep. That's right.
You can join the effort to save lives. Head over to our website, emily'shope.charity, to find out how you can get involved. You'll also find resources for those facing substance use disorder and support for their families. And be sure to join us next week on Grieving Out Loud, when we talk with the leaders of a powerful nationwide nonprofit bringing attention to the fentanyl crisis through art. Into Light Project features graphite portraits honoring people who have died from fentanyl poisoning and drug overdoses.
They can walk in and look at a portrait, and a mother in Maryland did this and said, "This is the first time I can hold my head high." It just makes them feel like, not only is their loved one being honored, but their life meant something.
That's next week on Grieving Out Loud. Thanks again for listening and learning more about this vital topic. Until next time, wishing you faith, hope, and courage. This podcast is produced by Casey Wonnenberg King and Marley Miller. Are you ready to protect the next generation from the dangers of substance use? Emily's Hope has created a comprehensive K-12 substance use prevention curriculum designed to educate, empower, and equip students with the tools they need to make healthy choices. Our age-appropriate lessons start in kindergarten and build through high school, using science, real stories, and interactive learning to help kids understand their bodies, brains, and risk of drug use. We're already reaching thousands of students across multiple states, and we're just getting started. Visit emilyshopeedu.org to learn more and share our curriculum with your school administrators and counselors. At Emily's Hope, we believe prevention begins with education. Let's work together to keep our kids safe.